the goal for me, as I always said, is just not about food. It's about, the goal is to be informative, giving information to the whole company about Black history, Black pride, and the achievements that we made. And this is a feature honoring all of our Black chefs that sometimes are undervalued, and we want to make sure that we give homage to them. But one of the things you said Black chefs have been the backbone of food service, but largely invisible. You said that in 1986.
Prior to 1977, professional chefs in America were domestics. From 1963 to 1977, the American Culinary Federation fought to get the Department of Labor to reclassify cooks and chefs from domestics to professionals.
But there are Southern cooks like my mother that really benefited from Black chefs like you that got that message out to say, hey, this is what Black chefs have contributed to American cuisine and American culture, and why it's so important as part of Black history.
People of color, we don't only cook ribs and collard greens and mac and cheese. We can cook a hell of a lot more than what they say we can cook.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. So this is FLIK's Entrepreneurial Council. We're all here to talk to you today about Black History Month, which is an exciting opportunity for us. LaShawn, who's joining us today, is a technology services person at Waveguide. As I mentioned earlier, Waveguide is a FLIK brand. We do technology services, but LaShawn is really special because she not only does technology services, she's also the owner of Finding Justice Garden, a flower and vegetable garden in the city of Chicago. So we've invited LaShawn to join us to talk about growing food in areas that are typically deprived of fruits and vegetables. And one of the things we talk about is about how that deprivation is intentional. So we want to address that a little bit today, what we call food apartheid in the food justice community. And so without further ado, I will turn it over to LaShawn and Mike. Mike's going to talk to us about food as medicine, and then anything, Chef Randall, that you have to add to that conversation. We're so excited that you're here. So we'd love to hear from you about that as well.
Happy to be here and happy to hear LaShawn. Welcome.
Hi, LaShawn. You're on mute, so we're going to unmute you. Go ahead and let you do that.
Hello,
there we go.
everyone.
Hi. Hi, LaShawn. Welcome.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for this invitation. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
So I can begin by giving you all a run through of my business. Our business is Finding Justice, a flower and vegetable garden. We are located in the city of Chicago. It's the neighborhood. We live in a neighborhood where there isn't much, among other things. And our mission is to educate people on how to eat, and also provide fresh produce to those, I don't want to say by any means necessary, but we offer delivery services and places for them that is convenient for them to pick up at affordable rates. So it has been working for us. We love it. We have a few community-supported agriculture CSA subscriptions where people will, give us a portion of the money up front, and then we will provide bags of produce weekly or bi-weekly, depending upon their subscription. And it's a great program that is gaining momentum. We had a different market prior to COVID, but we had to change. So that has been working well for us. In this environment, people are becoming more aware of what they eat, how they eat, where the food comes from, and those are the type of talks that we have a lot these days.
It's so great to have you, and I know I'm going to tap into you later on and get more information from you, because I'm sure you can really help me out a lot with it.
Well, and LaShawn told me, Chef, she actually partners with chefs on creating dishes based on her vegetable garden.
So I have a new partner now.
I love it. Yeah.
So this is on this series and this is going into week 3 for us, and it's about Black history and Black pride, but it's also about Black wellness. And I wanted to focus week 3 on kind of like plant-based cuisine and plant-forward cuisine, and how we use food as medicine. But what's really important to me before the as they call it, the transatlantic journey for we were a people that really ate the right way. We ate a plant-based, plant-forward cuisine. You know, vegetables, leafy vegetables, grains, with limitation and very limited on meats. And, we ate fish, but very limited. But it was really mostly a plant-based diet until we got over here, and then all hell broke loose, and we went like the opposite. We started eating loads of meats and loads of fat, and even started to add dairy to our diet. So now we're in recovery, and we need to really figure out how we're going to move forward and use plant-based as our medicine and our new diet. So it can help us with obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, and all the ailments that we have now. So I really wanted to focus on week 3 and say, okay, pretty much kind of like what you were alluding to earlier, LaShawn, the vegetables, the leafy green, fresh grown products, the produce, and how we can move forward with that. And I think some of that, so we can start to heal some of the ailments that's bothering us with using these foods as medicines, as for better antioxidants, healing with just getting everything out of the extra fibers that we're supposed to get, the minerals and proteins and vitamins that we're getting out of food. So I want to kind of talk quickly about how do you foresee us doing that with a lot of the menus that we're going to use, but I want to tap into what would be your suggestion on moving forward as using plant-based as a healing process for us. This is really, for me, this is really important, and as you can see, I'm always passionate about food in general, but I'm passionate about us living longer.
Yes. So a big piece of what we do is about food diversity. People generally go to a grocery store and it is the exact same food over and over and over again. However, there are many varieties of everything, many of them for which I have never even seen. When I first started with farming, now you can see that there are different colors of carrots, like purple and white and red carrots. Some people would go into a grocery store and say, carrots are supposed to be orange, only orange. They're dyeing them. That's not real. GMO, what is this? That's not always true, but sometimes it could be true. If you're a farmer who knows where they get their seeds, right? Goes across the board with everything, tomatoes, squash, carrots, so it goes on and on and on. So what I have started to do is we grow different varieties of these familiar produce items that people are used to. I've grown white tomatoes, black tomatoes, green tomatoes, cucumbers also come in white and yellow. And so sort of what we have going on now is about what will grow in the climate for which I live in. Currently, I don't have a greenhouse where I can control climate conditions. I'm working on it. Okay. But given what we have and what's available to us now, we are experimenting with what will grow here and what will not. Nonetheless, I was able to grow, as I said, a variety of different colors of squash, tomatoes, and cucumbers. And when you present these new things to people, at first they're reluctant. I don't know what this is. What is this? I'm not eating a black tomato. It's rotten. And it's like, taste it. You might like it, right? So you slice it up and people are looking at it. Some of the heirloom varieties are like green on the outside with like black goo on the inside. And they're just like, I don't know. So you try it and you're like, here, children are mostly susceptible to this. They're like, oh, whatever. So they'll do it. And then they're like, oh, it's kind of like a smoky taste to it. Or, the taste of it isn't what I'm used to. So you may say that you don't like a tomato, but maybe you just don't like that variety of a tomato. So you should try other tomatoes if they're available to you, just to see if this is a thing or not. So that's part of the education piece that we give to others. And it's mostly about trying it. Because again, oftentimes I give talks about how, and I have done it myself, where I go into a grocery store and there's funky looking thing. And it's like, what's that? It looks interesting, but I don't know what this is. I don't know how to cook it. I don't know how to eat it. I don't know how to prepare it. So I walk right past it and I'll go for what I know, right? So we do like education pieces where it's, hey, this is the new thing of the day or the week. And also in our CSA boxes, we include these things with recipes on how to prepare them. Because a big piece of it is you may be willing to try it, but how do you prepare it? It's easy for you to try something that someone is giving you rather than I'm going to make it myself. So we start with things that are easy to make. And for those that are interested, we'll do things that are more complex or difficult. And as Julie mentioned before with the chef piece of it, a lot of times I grow herbs that I'm unfamiliar with myself. And I know that the taste is amazing, but I am not a chef. I can come up with some things, but they're not great always, right?
Hey, we all do
and
that.
like, and then the chef's like, this would be great and blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, show me. And then they'll do it. And I'm just like, whoa, I would have never thought that this and that could go together to create this party in my mouth. So, it's just like a great experience. And I think that with that said, with the food diversity piece, as we're eating things that are different, it incorporates different vitamins, different minerals into our bodies that can nourish us and keep us healthy, away from the diseases that you mentioned before with the hypertension and the high blood pressure. And if we make it interesting, I think that it will be more susceptible to people.
And LaShawn, you said you actually fill prescriptions too, right?
Well, yes.
Wow.
So here in Chicago, there's a program. They call it the Veggie RX program. And there are some clinics and medical facilities that will prescribe vegetables as the medicine for people with diseases that are curable with a change in diet.
Wow.
So it's kind of like a voucher program. And if they bring them, it's done two ways. So they can bring them to farmers markets and it's kind of like a coupon exchange thing where we're paid later. It is like there is a company that's set up, again, accept the vouchers to get paid from the state again. But people are generally taking these vouchers or Veggie RX coupons to a space that grows fresh local produce. In exchange for that piece of paper, they get fresh produce.
That's incredible.
I'm gonna write that down because I love that. That's awesome.
That's awesome.
As the old fella here at the table, I'm going to share this with you. I learned how to eat before I learned how to cook. And there's something about being careful and not overeating or overdoing it with anything.
Right.
About 3 years ago, I was drinking iced tea, and I ran 5 restaurants here for SCAD, the Savannah College of Art and Design. And it's 100 degrees here in Savannah. So every time I walk in the door, one of my employees say, "You want iced tea, chef?" And I'm saying, "Yeah, hot out there." And they filling them, it's got 10 pounds of sugar in it. And I'm
so delicious.
I'm just drinking it down. And I looked up, I run to the bathroom, and I just went to my doctor. I said, something ain't right.
Mm-hmm.
And he took my sugar, it was 586 or something.
Wow.
He said, I'm glad you came. You might not have made it. So I stopped drinking iced tea with sugar in it that day. You know, I use a little sweet and low. I still like iced tea. I just don't drink it near as much as I used to. I took sodas completely out of my diet. I haven't had a soda in 20 years. Just a little ginger ale once in a while, my stomach get upset. But that every time you're thirsty, grab a Coke or that's what you do in Georgia. You drink a Coke. They offer you Coke. They offer you Coke when they won't offer you a glass of water.
Wow.
I wanted
So there's
to,
some things we got to do with moderation and think about that. But I'm listening to her and I'm hearing the opportunity. The exposure is important because if you're not exposed to something, most often you won't eat it. I know my children only eat what their mother prepared for them. You know, my wife never cooked green peas. My children don't eat green peas. She didn't like them. She don't care if they don't never get one.
That's how it goes.
But you have to expose them to different things, and they'll decide in time if they like it or not.
That's what I think I'm hearing that, Chef, from you and LaShawn. And I want to kind of, before we get on to the last piece, but I want to ask everyone, because we're talking about plant-based diets and food as medicine and healing process, how can we continue the uplifting of the Black culinary traditions through plant-based foods and plant-based cuisine going forward? Anyone have a suggestion on that? Because I started putting together some of the things we can do and starting the healing process. And I think, LaShawn, you started talking about, I put down in my notes, buy the right kinds of food is number one.
That's important.
Number two, when we're going into supermarkets, and the reason why I'm saying this is I'm sharing this with our associates and everyone, but I want to make sure that we when we're going into supermarkets, you know, spend the majority of your time in the produce section and start to put your meal together there. And then when you go in, you can start to limit and maybe eliminate some of the other stuff that's not good for you. I think give yourself enough time to prepare foods when you're home. I know we're all on a shoestring and we're running around and we're doing a lot of things, but I think we don't give ourselves enough time to prepare food and to really put your heart and soul into it, because we got so used to fast food, as what you mentioned, Chef, fast foods and processed foods, that we forgot that we are people who put time into cooking. You think about your grandmother,
You got a plan
you
to
think
do
about, right, you think they spent all day in the kitchen. I'm not saying we have to spend all day, but spend time in your kitchen and plan creating
your meals. I hear you saying plan your meals. So that means you got to buy the things you plan to cook.
Exactly.
Instead of just walking through, taking a lot of stuff home, and then saying, I don't feel like fixing that now.
Yeah.
I'd like to add a little to this as well. I'm so excited about what LaShawn is bringing to the table. Being from the Caribbean diaspora, we eat a lot of vegetables and what we call root vegetables here. And about 3 years ago, I had to recalibrate how I ate and what I'm putting in my body as we're aging. And of course, I have a beautiful granddaughter, and I wanted to teach her how to plant her own food. So she has been planting with me since she's 2. She's now 5. So it's a big to-do every spring. But mostly, I started to understand what it does for your body, your health, how you feel so much better. And then I wanted to introduce her to the root vegetables that we grew up with that has the same antioxidants, high fiber, like the eddas, the plantains, the green figs. And recently I started roasting them, and it's incredible. And my granddaughter already loves vegetables. She makes cucumber sandwiches with broccoli in it, you know. Wow. It's really strange for a 5-year-old, but her parents insisted that was the way they were going to feed her and teach her how to eat. I can say she does not know what a soda is, and she's 5, because we don't consume soda. I had to learn that reading labels tells you how much sugar is in everything. So I started making my own sauces. I grow my vegetables, and so we are communicating that to her, and we're raising her in that culture. And so that's how, Mike, I think we can start from one generation to the next.
Absolutely.
Fun to dig up the earth and plant and hope the squirrels don't eat your tomatoes before you get to it, which happens every year. I'm like, really? But we look forward to digging up that soil together and planting and reaping our harvest and cooking with it. And it has been fun. But here's the thing, if you start them from young, that's all she knows. She doesn't know anything else. You know, she doesn't know what a soda is. I'm quite sure she'll know when she starts school. She's being homeschooled now, but I think she will not. I don't like the taste of sugar. I don't like the taste of sodas. I can't tell you when last I had a soda. It's been ages. But I think we have to make a commitment in the Black community that food is essential to your well-being, and
Yeah.
the correct food. And it doesn't have to be that expensive at all, really. I mean, you look at the sales like everything else, and you do things that are healthy for your body. You go to the vegetables section and you do spend a lot of time, you know, cut up, you know, different colors of green bell peppers, which is one of my favorites, right? And you put that over some salmon, and you really don't need to eat anything more than that. You put a nice bed of lettuce, not lettuce really, I have to correct that. We use spinach a lot, arugula, not regular lettuce. But if we start this as a culture, as a movement, that we teach our children to eat right, and it's really yummy, right? They will do okay, and I look forward to passing that on for generations.
It's all modeling, right? And it goes back to our segment just where we were talking about these celebrated Black chefs. Like, we have these celebrity chefs who teach us how to live and be. It's more than just, you know, what they're cooking in their own restaurants. They have an impact on the culture. So we need to be elevating, you know, moms and dads and celebrity chefs the world over that our, you know, cultures can look up to. I love that, Rhonda.
And continue to talk about the benefits of eating a plant-based diet and how healthy it is for you, first of all, but it helps your mind, helps you get through the day, think right, functionality. You know, we talk, a lot of us don't sleep a full 8 hours a night. It's not because we're tired and we got to get up the next morning, it's because we don't eat right. And, you know, if you want to start eating, if you want to sleep the full amount of hours and be ready for the next day, it starts with eating right. I'm sorry, Chef.
I just said I love broccoli.
We're gonna figure out a way to get down there so we can have dinner at Chef Joe Randall's place. Julie, do you want to lead us into the last segment?
Yeah, I just wanted to add. I'm sorry, Julie. I just wanted to add to make that connection between what LaShawn is doing here and what, you know, Chef Joe and Chef Mike and Rhonda are talking about. I want to acknowledge that the space that LaShawn is filling is so important because she's in the inner city. She's giving folks access to fresh vegetables where they would normally have it. Or even when you do have a supermarket in your neighborhood, the produce is not fresh. It's more expensive than it would be if you wanted to buy something that was already prepared. And people, you know, who are low income have limited time, right? So they need to be able to get into the supermarket, get something that's good, that's going to last. You know, when you put the lettuce in the fridge or the tomatoes or carrots in the fridge, it needs to last you until you're going to cook it. So that's where LaShawn and people like you are really making a huge impact on how we eat and how we engage with food. We're not shaming people and just saying, hey, you know, if you just ate some vegetables, you wouldn't die from cancer or whatever. We are trying to get people to deal with food in a way that's not accusing them of not taking care of their bodies, but it's giving them access to the good food and healthy ways that help them get back to the original way that we have always eaten. But we haven't done this on purpose. And LaShawn, you are, you know, a champion, and we appreciate you and your efforts so much, because though, you know, you're one company, there's so many people who are like you, but specifically you're changing the game for how we eat, and we appreciate you so deeply.
Thanks for bringing that up, Trudy. That was an important part of this segment, and I'm really glad that we didn't let that go.
I think when we're highlighting, because I didn't want the chef part to just be the 4 or 5 weeks, and I was going to say that's something we're going to be doing throughout the whole year, but we're also going to feature Deshawn Miller. And we should talk about her success, but we should talk about what she's doing, because if she's doing it, more people can do it. And maybe we need someone to start the process, and we love having you on there.
Yeah, I will also say that is another piece of what we do. I'm one grower, right? So we encourage others. Not only can you come to my farm site and I'll show you everything that I know that you're willing to do, right? We take volunteers all the time, but we also give seeds and do this yourself. Because if I have a block that I live on and there's 5 houses here, one house can grow tomatoes, another can do cucumbers, and we can exchange, you know, produce in that way, you know. And then it will be my ultimate goal that we don't need these grocery stores anymore because we have each other. So that's what we're working on.
Love that
get
goal.
more people growing food, because working on a farm is hard. A lot of people don't like to do hard work anymore, and it pays very little. So it's not an attractive field at all at this moment. But I'm also working on that as well.
I'm sorry, honey. We have to remember that we really are rural. When I come up as a kid, everybody had a garden. You know, when I was a kid, I would run because they wanted me out there with a hoe. I was running to go play, but they trying to make me pull the vine off the corn and pick the beans. And everybody had a garden, and a lot of that land is just sitting there now because nobody want to do the work. You know, you weren't able to pass it on to the kids. And they didn't force them to do it because they really, you know, we spoiled our children, want them to have a better life than we had. And nowadays, some of them don't know how to do nothing for themselves.
Yeah, so true. Yeah.
I think
it was intentional the way she was raised to eat. And it was cultural too, because we're from the Caribbean, right? We eat, my mom still grows her own food. And what we've done in my little friendship circle, I would say 6 of us grew vegetables this year, and we grew different types of vegetables, and we exchanged vegetables. So we kind of went back to the kind of rootsy, purposefully. I think with everything that went on with COVID and George Floyd, we had to go back to something that made us feel grounded: home, roots, heritage, culture. And so we just, through the summer, kind of exchange food, drop it off at the front and say, hey, what are you harvesting today, you know?
beautiful.
But it felt good, and you feel better, of course. And we had some competition because, you know.
Gotcha.
Makes it fun.
That makes it fun.
Right, you must.
No, I'm literally wanted to run as soon as LaShawn said that about your neighbors, run to my neighbor friend who I know is growing something. I have my little patch here. 'Tis the season. We're right here in January where we can plan and prepare for the spring to do it. So, it's just
And to add, if you could imagine, like, buy a bell pepper, or you have a bell pepper and you cut the top off, you have all those seeds.
Yeah, yes.
Each one of those seeds will create a bell pepper plant. So you can just take the seeds of one, dry them, and then boom, you have that many bell pepper plants for the next growing season.
Wow.
Thank you,
It's crazy
LaShawn.
that people are out here hungry and starving to death.
Yeah, we
so
bell pepper seeds. Yes, I'm doing it right.
yes, you are. You know,
know,
some of the other
I think
things are a little more difficult, but peppers are easy, tomatoes are easy. And then, you know, some plants take a little longer to grow, like you won't get what you need out of it the first year, like strawberries or
I failed twice already with strawberries.
yeah, you know, it's not as easy as most people
Right.
say.
Yeah.
They'll tell you, oh, strawberries is a weed. When I first tried to do it, I was like, no, this isn't. The vines are turning red. This isn't right. And now we have Google, which makes things so much easier. And you Google it, they're like, your plant's sick. I'm like, why is it sick? I fed it. There's light. There's water. I didn't do anything wrong. Where's this disease come from? They're like, don't worry about it. Take it up, you know, replant it. Did that. Same thing. It's like, I don't understand. So then I put it in the ground, and guess what? So much better. So, I mean, here in Chicago, they talk about our soil is contaminated with lead, but it has been my belief that doesn't a plant know what to intake and what not to intake? You know, so why are you telling me that I can't plant my seeds in the ground? So I came across this
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, LaShawn. I was going to ask what you were saying.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, so I came across this company that will measure the nutrient density of the food and tell you, you know, what's prevalent in particular produce. So this year, I'm growing things in the ground as well as in raised beds just to see, because I'm not what is the difference. So I'll have results coming after this season.
I love it.
I'm excited.
You know, LaShawn, there's folks like you who are doing this community work are so important, because a lot of us, well, I don't have a place where I can garden, but I go to my mom's and she has a huge garden. But you know, what you said about folks saying that there's lead in the soil, I think we should also acknowledge that we didn't come to this place, you know, by magic, right? There have been lobbies and specific intentional things around why we don't grow, and why Black people specifically are turning our nose up, you know, about, you know, agriculture, farming in general. And so we have to like demystify that and really embrace that again, and learn to look at it as a way that we can sustain ourselves instead of buying readily made foods, because there's a whole lobby that pushes this agenda that, you know, this is what's good for you, this is what's not good for you, this is what you can prepare, this is what you can't prepare. And when there are people who look like me who are telling me, look, I think that this is what is good for us, I'm doing it, it makes it so much more digestible to me anyway. Yeah. And I'm willing to say, LaShawn, girl, tell me how to put them green bean seeds in the thing and dry it out so I can eat it.
Yeah, I have these conversations because, again, the stigma over farming and Black people leads us back to slavery, right? But I tell people that part of the reason that they came for us is because we were farmers, and they couldn't feed themselves here in the United States. So they needed us because of our farming skills. So inherently, we are the people of the land. We can grow these things. We are made to eat things that we grow. Yeah. To walk into a grocery store, it's convenient, but you don't know where this food is coming from. So I'm a farmer, right? But I don't have the means to grow year round, right? Winter. So I have to buy produce from a grocery store in the winter. And just last week, I did like a Instagram post. The grocery store setup is so terrible, right? We're talking about systems, right? So you walk into the grocery store, the first section that you go into is produce. So grocery stores are designed to, you know, lead you into buying a certain type of way. So produce is first. It's supposed to be the first thing that you buy. You know how they say if you go into a grocery store hungry, you'll pick up a bunch of stuff, right? So initially you're in the produce section. You're supposed to buy mostly produce, right? It's a big section. Depending on the grocery store, it's colorful. The lighting is great. You know, it's an open space for you to go and pick produce. And as you move along, and then you go to like a meat section, right? And then you have the aisles with processed foods. And if you keep going at the back, there's the dairy, right? And they're all designed pretty much the exact same way.
The same. Yeah.
So the grocery store I was in the other day, the amount of processed foods that were available. This particular grocery store was different than the others that I have seen because there were more freezer aisles than I usually go to a grocery store. There's maybe like 2 or 3 freezer aisles. You'll have like the desserts and you'll have like, you know, it used to just be like 1 or 2 aisles for frozen foods. At this particular store, there were about 5 or 6, and the produce section was minimized.
Wow.
So you can see that the direction now is that they're pushing people to buy the processed foods. And when you all were talking about how to get people to do better with their diets, if people are creatures of habit, right, they will eat what they're familiar with and they will do it over and over again. Because as a child, I know my mother cooked about 5 or 6 dishes on rotation, and maybe we ate something new every other week or month. So with that said, you're going into these grocery stores with very limited options of fresh produce. What I tell people is eat a green vegetable every day. Just one. I don't care what it is.
Yep.
So I started with my cousin. I'm fighting with her like every week. Okay. Can I eat a cucumber? It's not a vegetable, but I'll take it, you know? And she'll start to send me pictures like, I ate this one green bell pepper today. I said, great job. I want you to do it again tomorrow, right? So as she gains this momentum behind eating one green vegetable a day, she's like, okay, what's next? I'm like, I'm glad you asked. So I firmly believe that processed foods, that's the worst thing you do for yourself. If you can eat whole foods, I don't care, make the dish. Or even if you buy it from somebody that made it, it's better than you buying a bag of frozen chicken or a bag of frozen whatever, you know, because I read ingredients when I go
all
to
that salt.
which people don't do that I didn't know. And it's filled with all these chemicals and bad things. So it's like, okay, can you not eat potato chips? That's a no most of the time. From everyone I talk to, it's okay, well, could you buy a loaf of bread that doesn't have high fructose corn syrup? You know, just like small things, you know, could you make your dinner for this week? And we'll agree, and then they'll mess up always. And then it's like, okay, let's get back on it. But after, you know, you gain the momentum and you form these habits, then it's like, okay, what's next? And so I have found that that has worked for me in helping people change their diets with. And even if it's when you make your plate at a meal, can the biggest portion be your vegetable portion?
Yeah.
You know, so it's just small things. Because if you say, don't do this, don't do that, people are like, oh, no, I can't do it. It's too much. Yeah. And it's like, it's not too much. Let's do something smaller until we can work up to those bigger things. So I think just by design, we're set up to fail anyway. And with us not knowing any better, that doesn't help the situation. So I have made it a point of mine to educate as many people that will listen to me. And again, a big push for me right now is gathering people to farm because it is a dying industry. The average farmer is like a 60-year-old white man and no one wants the job anymore, right? And that's a whole nother thing I could talk about for hours, but it's a real thing. Yeah.
I think we're going to invite you back to talk about that again sometime. This has been amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah, I've learned how to cook really easy foods throughout the week. You know, my vegetables, and I stir fry something, or, you know, I put curry or jerk seasoning in there and I
give it a flavor.
Vegetable. Well, now I'm roasting it, which I found out is so fantastic. I learned that 2 weeks ago. Instead of just boiling it, I roast it and it gets really crispy and it's really good. But I didn't cook for many, many years. I really didn't. I would say over the last 3 to 5 years, I've really recalibrated how I eat, what I put in my body, and getting back to things that are indigenous to Caribbean and Caribbean lifestyle. Because we wanted, for 5 years, when Blake was born, we made a conscious decision to raise her into culture. That's because we were thought, if your roots are strong, everything else on the tree will be great, strong.
No doubt.
And have a lot of blooms, right? And so, yeah, the birth of that little girl changed my life.
Awesome. LaShawn, does your team do anything around herbs? You know, my mom is retired as of January 1 this year.
Good for
and
her.
She's a huge herbalist. She, you know, if I'm like, oh mom, this and this, she's like, okay, well, here, what you need? You need some burdock root. You need some sarsaparilla. You need, you know, you need to go get some dandelion from outside on the corner.
Yes.
Do you work with any kind of herbs?
Yes, we do. I don't encourage people to go just picking up random dandelions where I live. But yes, a lot of folks here, we do like, they call them herbal medicine gardens, right? And we grow herbs for medicine specifically. So one that works for us is Echinacea is a very good one. I take that. So I used to buy the pills, right? And they work. So whenever I have a fever, just a few days ago, I was under the weather and I'm popping Echinacea pills, right? And then I was like, man, I paid too much money for this stuff. You know, a bottle of those pills are like $35. And I really don't know what they make the outside of it with. You know, how good is that for me to be taking 3 of those every day? What is this? I don't know. So growing the plant, it's a flower. It's pretty much a weed. It will grow anywhere. It doesn't need a lot of light, doesn't need a lot of love. It'll just grow. So the biggest thing for me, and there are people that are way better at this, right? For me is they say the difference between a remedy and a poison is dosage, right? So getting the proper dosages, right? I'm not real comfortable with, you know, but I have experimented with a lot of my friends that trust me, and a lot of these things work, you know. So for instance, there's a plant called a mullein flower, right? There's flowers and there's big leaves, right? And I have taken it before to help me go to sleep. But then as I did more research on this plant, it's not for sleeping. It's for like congestion. And I was like, then why did it make me sleepy? Maybe because it took too much. I don't know. So I told a friend of mine, he comes to my house, he's coughing. I was like, ugh, this is gross. I said, why don't you try this tea that I made? It'll help you. And he's like, I'm not drinking that stuff. It's probably nasty. And I'm not going to lie. It's nasty.
It's nasty.
I'm not going to lie. So I said, well, just try it. What's the worst that could happen? He's like, you don't know what how much I'm supposed to drink? I was like,
what's the worst that
do you want to get better or not? And he's like, I'll try it. So I gave him a little, because again, I didn't know, right? So I gave him like a half cup. And I'm like, here, try this. So he drank it. I didn't think anything of it. So the next day he's like, I'm not coughing anymore. And I was like, what? He's like, that stuff worked. And he had been coughing for like weeks, months, I don't know, for like a long time. And I was like, something to this. Can't say quite what it is, but it's a thing. So now, like, I'm reading all these books, and there's a lot of information out here. You can get it free in the library, right? About like specific diseases that you have, plants will heal them. So again, what I'm doing is I know what's for what, you know, can't say I know what the dosages are right now because I haven't gotten to that part of my book yet. But I'm doing it and it works. And again, for me here in Chicago, it gets cold, right? I can't grow everything. And there are general beliefs that like regional, right? Things that grow in our ground like dandelions and all these weeds are not weeds. They're medicine for the people that live in this area, right? It's just that, again, I'm still on this lead in my soil. I don't know how bad it is. So that's what I'm working on. So in my raised beds, I grow, like you said, the burdock root, right? The dandelions, we eat the leaves, the roots, and the flowers. Echinacea is one. Lemon balm works a lot. Mint is good. Chamomile. I like anise hyssop is a good one for like congestion in the chest. So yeah, for anyone who's asking me about like, you know, I have this cough or my chest or it's hard to breathe, onions are amazing, and garlic, they are nature's antibiotics. They're gross if you try to do it raw, but they are so effective. It's the answer. So, and also what I tell people is that with these plants, they are designed to have things inside of them that work together, right? So like a doctor will tell you something like, a carrot has beta carotene in it. That's what you need to see better. that's cool. So now you start taking higher dosages of beta carotene, but then maybe your body is like, whoa, this is too much. I don't know how to process all of this. Because if you eat a carrot, it does have beta carotene in it, but it also has like other vitamins and minerals that haven't been discovered by these same doctors that help you use the beta carotene in a way that helps or benefits your eyes. So to eat the whole plant is what you need to do instead of isolating one characteristic of that plant.
Right.
You get a desired effect. And that's what doctors don't quite understand. So when they come up with these pharmaceutical answers to the problems, they're not real answers because they cause other problems. Those are the side effects. And those things are bad, but they're making a lot of money, right? But if we could get back to the plant that you derive one piece of that to, it works better. And there's so many books out here. So many.
I think that's why we were talking about plant-based diets and all, because we relied so much on medicine, other medicines and doctors, that we forgot that if you just eat a good, healthy diet, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
So I think we just forgot that part.
Because that's again about the diversity, right? You're putting in these vitamins and minerals that you don't know what they are, but your body knows what it is, and it knows what to do with it.
That's supposed to be there, some of those things. Yeah.
It's also like what Chef Joe was saying about everything in moderation. Like once we started using these pharmaceuticals, we stopped all of the other ways of knowing that we already know. So they're like, no, you need to kind of do both of them in moderation.
Forget. Yeah.
Well,
all right, I'm overwhelmed with joy and emotions, and my brain needs to go process all that I learned. I'm gonna try to write everything down that I heard, because I didn't take notes, but I love to take notes. LaShawn, you just exploded my imagination right now.
Right.
Like what's possible and how we can do it. And wow, you just have an ease with explaining, hey, it's not rocket science. It's also not your fault. It's just, we just need to engage with it in a way that's sustainable to you. And I think that's my takeaway, really, the way you're engaging with your cousin, like, oh, just like eat one thing and then, all right, then try two things. Oh, you don't like that one? Try something different. I love that approach, because I have a son who, wow, he eats 5 things, total 5 things. And he's 22. I'll get him to eat spinach, but that's it. Like, he can eat spinach. What's green? A spinach and a green apple. And he's like, all right, good. I did something green. Back away from me now. Leave me alone. But the way that your approach is so, I love it. And I can probably go to him like, hey, you want to like get some arugula?
And you hit him with the just try it. Just try it.
Yeah, but thank you so much. This is
thank you so
amazing.
much. It's been a pleasure hearing you speak on food and good food and how we can grow our own food. And when we know better, we do better.
yes.
And we really have to start with the kids, that they can grow their food. Even in your house, you can grow herbs. You don't necessarily have to have a big yard, but you can start the little one off with, well, it's always a biology experiment anyway to grow that bean, right? But you can teach them how to grow herbs. And, one time I'm cooking and Blake walks over and she says, Mama, you have to add basil. She doesn't say basil. I stand corrected. She said, you have to add basil. It has a good flavor. And she smells it. She's very theatrical.
Hey.
But is she any different than kids her age? Not really. It's just what she knows. It's just, she knows there's always herb plants in the house. And she sees when I pick them, I smell them and say, wow, there's nothing better than fresh rosemary or fresh basil. And she mimics it, right? So I think you can do that even in the house.
Mm-hmm. And the things might die. You just start over. That's another thing that people are discouraged. I have a brown thumb. It's not, do you know how many plants I've killed in my lifetime? And I do this for work. I'm just saying. Just keep trying. A couple of YouTube videos, they make it look easy, okay?
They do, right?
They're really experts and they're pretending to do it the first time. Don't be disturbed. Try again. Let's try again.
Those are facts.